had to re-record a session. You know, like some of these videos that people see, oh, it's just a 10-minute, he just did it live. I actually sometimes get to like 50 minutes. Imagine like 50 minutes into the stream, and then something goes wrong,
Sure.
and I have to stop and start over. I remember the worst of them all was like a video that I had to
Yeah.
do 23 times. I found 23
Yeah.
files. Yeah. I spent basically half a day just to get a 10-minute video out. You know how like in the theaters and cinema that, you know, one action, one scene takes
Mhm.
hours to happen. That's pretty much this. It's like a minimized version of that, pretty much.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Today I want to tell people a little bit about integrating with databases, right? I want to show people, you know, here is, you have a system and this system is awesome, it's doing something awesome, but almost 90 to 80 to 90% of the systems that you're going to build in your entire career is going to need some form of storage. That storage can be in memory, it can be, you know, hard storage. It can be a glacier kind of storage, which is like something really slow that you just leave, you know, data in, but not necessarily access all the time. All kinds of different storages, right? It happens all the time. I mean, Christo, throughout your career, you know, do you even remember a system that you had to build that didn't have some form of storage in it?
No, always had
It's very,
storage.
it's very rare. It's very, very rare, especially if you're doing something important and interesting. You're probably gonna need storage, right? At some point in time. The joke out there in the tech community is that the Snapchat app, where you view the video and then it gets deleted, it disappears forever. Even that needs storage. It needs to keep that video for a short period of time until it kind of, you know, erases it. So we're going to talk about storage, right? So the most classic thing in the world, and you know, if you're watching this and you're new in the industry, even if you're mid-career or senior level, just listen in. I think you might find something interesting. You're going to build a system. I don't care. This system can be an API, it can be a UI, it can be anything you want. Like in a monolithic application scenario, your UI is your API, and it's all one big monolithic system that's talking to storage. And you're going to need to talk to some form of databases. This databases can be all kinds of different kind of different systems. You know, you can be basically working with file storage, SQL storage, MySQL. There are all different kinds of technologies out there. But I do want to scare you. I want to just introduce you to something that kind of works, something that just you put it in there, it works. It works on your local machine, it works in the pipelines, and it works in the cloud. So it works in airplane mode. It works in the pipeline when you try to actually build something serious, and it works in the cloud when you deploy it for the rest of the world to work. That's the criteria. That's all that we need, right, Krista? It works on my machine, works here and there. That's all, right? Anything that violates that, and that's why we have some problems with queues and service buses and stuff like that, because you can run it in the cloud, but you can't run a simulation of it in the pipeline. That's why we have this whole idea about SPAL, standardized provider abstraction, and all that. Okay, so we did talk about storing some data, you know, and we put, I don't know if we changed that model a little bit. I have it saved here.
This
And
is
yeah, did it change that model?
slight change, yeah.
Okay,
Um,
why don't you show us the real model, like the latest and greatest of this
if you
model?
if you open up the main page of the
The
project it's on,
discussions.
yeah.
Okay,
Uh,
let's do that. So get file, let me go back to our discussions.
main page code.
Oh, the main page. Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
I think it's on.
Nice.
Uh, okay, yeah.
Is it this
Gregory
one?
put that up, so any of the open issues should have it on. If it's not on
Oh,
there,
gotcha. Gotcha. Okay, so data, repository, contributor. Do I
yeah,
just open one of
pick
them?
yeah, there it is.
Oh my Lord, you actually went out there, all the way out there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the only change was that small table all the way to the right, the source table.
The source.
It's just a
Gotcha.
bit of normalization that we added.
Gotcha. So So this is what they call a database schema. And this database schema basically allows you to describe how your data is going to be persisted in any given system, right? What do you want to do? And normalization, denormalization is a whole science in and of itself. How can you look at a problem and decide to break things apart? Do you put first name, last name in the same table as a person? Or maybe this person uses other first names and last names, so you need another table to put multiple first names and multiple last names. I will not present this for people who are new in the industry as raw, kind of cold content like there's many to many and one to many and whatnot. You're going to learn it as part of building a real world program. This is the best way to learn, to kind of get involved and engaged in an actual real world program. And that's how you're going to learn about these things. Okay. One big mistake when people start building databases, you have to build them one table at a time, right? You can't start with the repository. You can't start with contribution. You can't start with contributor, because a lot of these systems, well, you may be able to start with contributor, but certainly, well, actually you can't, because it's not an edge table. An edge table is a table that doesn't reference any other table. It's like the domino effect. You need to start with the one that doesn't rely on any other table, and that's where you start. Basically, that's when you start looking into, oh, this is how the system is supposed to work, and this is what I'm starting to build with. So I would start with source,
Hmm.
and then
It's
go to maybe contributor, and then maybe go to repository, or maybe the other way around: source, repository, contributor, right? The
mhm,
chronological order of things. You go to GitHub, you navigate to a repository, you look at the contributions, you look at the contributor who made that contributions, look at the contributor and then the contribution, and then maybe see the types and all that good stuff. Okay, so we have two options. We can start with contribution type and we can start with source. But how do I make a system talk to a database? Like, I don't know how to make a program talk to a database. Let's get started with that. So there is a fun thing that we do, which is you need first to define your model. You need to define your model. So this is get file. I'm gonna go and create a new branch in here. I will call it users, Hassan, data, and then source migration. So this is model and migration, where I basically generate the equivalent of a database table in C# code. So you're writing C# code, you don't have to learn SQL, and magically it will create a database table for you. I'm going to show you what that looks like. It's really cool. So for starters, we need to initialize what we call a storage broker, something that knows how to communicate with a database. In order for that to happen, we have to install a bunch of NuGet packages. I'm going to go here and pull in something called exceptions, and I will tell you what this exceptions library does. It's a very important library, and it does a lot of important stuff for us. It's basically a library that doesn't just allow you to communicate with a database, but it also allows you, it pulls in all the stuff that we care about, the entity framework, all the pieces that we need. We might still need to install the entity framework for design and tools. We'll see. Let me just install this first. That's number one library I want to install. And then I'm going to go and install the Entity Framework SQL edition. So this is the SQL server right here. Let me kind of minimize the screen here for people on their phones so they see. So this is Microsoft Entity Framework Core SQL Server, because we're going to be talking to a SQL server. And whether you know it or not, you actually have a SQL server installed on your machine. As soon as you install Visual Studio, sometimes this comes as part of the deal. That's Visual Studio, not Visual Studio Code, right? Now, navigating that database is a different story. I also want Entity Framework tools, and I'll show you what these tools does in a second. Here's my tools, and I also want the design piece. I think one of them pulls the other. So about three or four libraries that you want to bring in. Let's pull that in. So it has 472 million downloads on it. Can't be wrong. Must be doing something really important. Let's see what that is. Let's appreciate this. Okay, so I installed all these libraries. It's all good and dandy. Let's go ahead and rebuild our solution just to make sure these libraries are actually settled in. The solution is stable, and all these binaries are copied to your dist folder or your bin folder. Now I want to start building something called a broker. And a broker is something that sits in the middle between your system and the external world. Whether your system wants to send emails, whether it wants to send data, whether it wants to queue a message, whatever the case may be, you want to separate your system from the outside world, because if your system knows too much about the outside world, every time you try to change your storage, you're going to have to rewrite your internal system as well, which can be a huge cost. It's a very nice trick of abstraction. You'll come to appreciate it when you start kind of switching technologies and stuff like that. But it also helps with testing, and we'll talk about that in the next sessions. So this is storage. I'm going to go and create an interface. I'm going to call it iStorageBroker. So here's iStorageBroker, like that. That's the interface that we're going to be working with. Interfaces should be internal. So I'm going to take this out, right? And we're going to talk a little bit about how we can make binaries friends to each other so they can see things an external consumer can't see. I'm going to also, excuse me, I'm going to create a storage broker in here, which is the implementation of that interface. What is this interface? What are all these things that Hassan's talking about? It's all going to come in time. When we start using things, it's all going to come in time. I think this one is also internal, right? Should be,
Yep.
right? Should I explicitly say internal? Probably. No? Internal.
I tend to add it.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Explicit kind of. Okay, and this storage broker kind of implements iStorage broker, but it also implements this exceptions thing that I talked about earlier. I think the concrete comes before the interface, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
There you go. Right? This inheritance kind of gives you all the details you need to be able to talk to a database, right? And I'm going to show you in a second, what does that even mean? So if I have an interface like this, I want to inject the configurations, which has the details about which database I need to be talking to. So if I'm talking to a local database, production database, some database in a server somewhere in Tokyo, it doesn't matter. As long as you have that connection string, that's all you need to be able to connect to that database, given that you have the right permissions. And in here, I'm just going to go and say this dot database dot migrate. This line ensures that every time you update your database and deploy it, update your code and deploy it somewhere, it will apply the same changes. So you had a student model, and that student model had an ID, first name, last name, and you decided to add age or date of birth in there. It will make sure these changes get applied wherever you deploy your application. Super important line of code. You would be surprised by how a lot of technologies are missing these things today. And then I have my configuration here. I'm just going to go and say private read-only I configuration. It's just a private class member. I'm going to assign that class member here. Do not do the underscore thing that people do. Don't go and do something like that. That's a bad practice that people inherited by mistake. You know, you already have this dot, so you don't need to do that underscore. Okay, so I built that component called storage broker. And I told that component, take configurations to tell you where you're supposed to talk to a database you're supposed to talk to, and also run migrations. Every time I change my database models, go ahead and apply that. Now watch this. I'm going to do an override, meaning I'm calling a function that already exists in this exceptions context. I'm going to go and say on configuring. On configuring meaning that when you are configuring the database, make sure you get that connection string from that I configuration piece. So that basically means, so I can go and say connection string like that equals, and then this dot configuration, get connection string default connection. Someone might say, wait a second, where's this coming from? How did you end up with this guy here? Well, this configuration comes from your settings or your environment variables. You don't see it in here, but the cool thing about Visual Studio is that if I delete that development piece and I go and add one out of the box, it will generate one for me with the connection string outside of the box, just like that. So let me just do this, settings. Here you go. And then I want an app settings file, and I'm going to call it app settings dot development dot JSON. Watch this. Oh, they don't do it anymore. they
Mm.
don't they don't give you the connection string anymore. Or or maybe, hang on, maybe I forgot. Let me do this. So I'll go and add a new file, and I'm gonna type in settings. They used to, that's for sure, but they don't do it anymore, which is very interesting. Let me see here, and that's okay. We can write it down together. It's not a big problem. I just wanna I know that people will forget and maybe they won't find it somewhere. So it would be a lot easier if it's done this way. Let me see if I can find it. Nope, they don't do it anymore. Okay, fine. Let's go find it. I think Krista here just shared one with me. So here's a connection string. In the ye olden days, I guess we are in these days now, in the new days now, where basically, you know, the connection string used to be generated outside of the box for you. But I'll show you something in here that makes it super easy to remember. Like I'm gonna take away almost half of that stuff. I don't need half of that stuff. So all I need here is basically really just identify your local DB service, this server, that's Microsoft SQL local DB.
Yeah. Son, I think you're missing the connection strings.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's,
So
that's
yeah, yeah, connection strings, that's right. And then move that guy in there. And for some reason, have you noticed this recently? I don't know, maybe it's just me. Visual Studio started to kind of forget, like it doesn't have my key bindings for some reason. There you go, like
yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah. The key bindings is all over the place at the moment.
Yep,
I found that as well.
yep. So here you go. Server local DB. There you go. Cyberspace says, isn't that a good thing? You said app settings is not a place for secrets. What do you think about that, Crystal? How do we make sure our secrets don't leak outside?
Yeah, we we can put our connection strings in the developer settings, but as there's no passwords and stuff in this connection string, it's kind of fine to leave it in here.
Yep.
If you go and deploy it to Azure, your app
Mhm.
settings they will override this. So
Yep.
as long as you don't put anything sensitive in this default app settings .json, then you're fine.
Yep. The beautiful thing about this is that it doesn't have a username and password. So only if the current user running this application has outside of the box access to the local database installed, only then you'll be able to, run this application. Otherwise, no go. And when it's deployed in the cloud, it will have all the actual, secrets or identity management or any other advanced, kind of mechanism to hide your secrets. Okay, so someone might say, where do I see this Microsoft Local DB? If you actually click SQL Server Object Explorer up here, you'll find it right here. It's actually, I have two database servers running, right? But in here, you can actually look at the databases that you have in your system and you can see what's going on in there. So no problem there. It's already pre-installed. This is how you check if you actually have that database installed in your system. So, okay, I'm gonna I'm gonna try to so this is where that default connection is coming from. This guy is smart enough to know where to get that connection, but is that the end of it? No, that's not the end of it. We need to be able to set that up. So I just barely just added the got the connection string, but I need to go and say options builder use SQL server and then pass in the connection string. Now you have a deal. Now you have a communication. Not yet, actually. We need to go into the program CS and register this broker, right? We have to register this broker. So we basically go here and say, let's take it in here, builder dot add services dot add transient iStorage broker maps to that, but also builder services. I think it's add DB context of storage broker. I think that's the deal that we have here. And we're gonna kind of put these in their own method very soon. But for now, I just want you to see that how simple this is. You added a storage broker, you had the builder services DB context. That's it. Okay. So far, so good. Now you have a system that talks to a database, but what is it supposed to say to the database? That's where Christo comes in. Do you want to do the source migration stuff?
Yeah, I can do that. Let me just
Okay, so
drag
I'll
my.
just do this. I'll just say configs, actually, brokers, initialize storage broker. You can work on the same branch if you want. I'll
Yeah,
push
I
that
want to.
upstream, and then I'll just let you kind of drive from your side. All right, here we are.
So
Okay.
yeah.
People in the chat, let us know if you're not able to see, if it's too small or anything. I think I can see it from here, but let us know. Sorry, Krista, you might have to increase. We'll see what they say. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay, so I've got your code now. Um, shall we add the node tracking as well on the
Not yet, not
thing?
yet. Just wait. Just keep it really, really bare minimum, and then we're gonna tell people, hold off all the good stuff. I'm gonna
Okay,
break it down. Yeah.
so which bit is it that you want me to
Let's
um,
start with source. So let's create a model.
source?
Yeah.
Um, so I'm just bringing up that.
There we go.
So we create a folder called models, and then the next thing we'll do is we'll create a folder for foundation. So this model will be tied to a foundation service for CRUD operations.
Hmm.
Um, and then the entity we're going to look at is sources.
Maybe we should put a URL. What do you think
Yeah, we can
for
put
the
the URL.
source? Hmm. Oh, look. Go back. It did it for you. That's scary. Go back. Go to the top and no. Just sorry, Christo. Go back. There it is. Watch. How does it know that?
Nice, clever. Yeah.
That's wild.
So yeah, that's the bare
Yep.
minimum of the model.
So what you're
Um,
telling me right now is that you're gonna take that model. Should it be source or sources? Source, right? Just one.
source. Sorry, yeah, that's typo.
So,
Yeah,
so the
source.
namespace is plural, but the actual entity is singular, right? And then the
Yeah,
file as well.
yeah.
Probably you want the file as well to be named source. Nice. So, so what you're telling me is that you're going to take that model and make it a database table without you writing any SQL, just like that.
Yep.
That's wild. All right, show us. Let's see what that looks
Okay.
like. All right.
I think it's just source.
Oh,
Um,
for the databases, it's plural. It's sources.
sources.
Yeah, so you're
Yeah.
creating like a partial class that has all the knowledge about that particular database table, basically.
So
DB set source. Look at that.
so
Uh-huh.
so the DB set is just to tell EntityFramework this is an entity that we want to bring in. So EntityFramework is aware of it.
So that DB set is what's going to tell the entity framework that we are we want this particular model to convert into a database table.
Yeah.
Okay, just be careful because the parent storage broker will error out because it's not partialized yet. Sorry, I forgot. Okay.
And then we've got another small thing to do in terms of configuration. So
Okay.
um, you can stop here, and
Mhm.
what EntityFramework will do is it will infer a lot of things for you. So it knows that the ID is primary key, and then it'll look at all these fields to say name is a string and URL is also a string. But we want to define a little bit more. So what we can do is we can create a configuration for that.
So in this particular case, what do you want to define? Because I don't think source need anything.
Name is a required property, and we want a unique index on that, so that we can't create multiple sources with the same name.
Wait on that one. Just keep it.
Okay.
Just keep it really. I know you know that stuff. I know, brother, but just keep it super.
Okay. So we can check it in like that.
Yep.
The other thing is that I also normally do in the configuration file is that we put a text limit, say, on name. So it's not in varchar max. We know a name is not going to be, say, more than 255 characters.
Yep. So
But I can check it in like this, and then we can do another code up to do the
but
configurations if you want.
but wait, we told people that this is going to be a database table. So what's going to turn this into a database table?
We need to add a migration.
Let's do it. That's this task.
So
So you're writing this command, add migration, okay, and then add source model or
yeah,
something. Okay. So this magical thing is just going to generate code for you, and it's just going to create a database for you.
yep.
That's crazy. Wow, look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that.
So this is your migration script that's generated. So when you deploy it, or any changes will be your up script, and if you need to roll back, that is what it needs to do to get it back to the previous state. You'll see that it's got this migration file.
Nice.
So that is the timestamp and on what was added, and that is the snapshot of all the migrations added together.
Amazing.
And I'll check that in for you.
Yeah, I'll take it and run it and show people what it looks like when you run the migration. So Christo just created that. I have a question here. Why using partial class? Is it for organizing? Yeah, it's simply just for organizing. It's simply just so you can manage your code, because in real systems, Farisa, if you have a real system, you may end up with some 30, 40, maybe 50 database tables. And you want to just manage something related to students tables or teachers tables. So partialization here is purely just for organizational. We really care a lot about how the code looks like, and we want to make sure the code looks pretty. And this is really something that we emphasize across every single line of code we build. I just want to show people what Christo just did. Like if you have a database table installed and he basically went and did that, generated all these migrations, that's just the code that he just created. If I go and I don't know, if I run the application, automatically it will kick off the auto migrate for me. Let's just see what that looks like. So it just spun up like an API, but what really happened in the background, watch this. It should have created a database for me, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. Unless we're missing something. Unless something is missing. Oh, let's see. So this is your storage broker. You have this on migrate, but there's nothing that's using that storage broker yet. So nothing triggered it, really, right? I will try to pretend that this guy is initializing a storage broker. I'll inject it in here, private read-only I storage broker, just to show people what this looks like, and then create a CTOR out of this, generate a constructor. And basically, I'll just do that. and this guy is complaining because the interface needs to be public, Christo, for the storage broker. I mean, it's not supposed to be at this level, but it like we never connect storage brokers to controllers, right?
Yeah.
That's a fact. But we have to do this here because you have to kind of show people and initialize the system. But that's not the case. Okay, so I'm running this. I just ran it. It initialized a storage broker. So if I look back into my system here, I should see a database. Look at that. It just created get file database. And underneath that database, it created a table called sources. And underneath sources, it created columns, which is exactly the ID, name, URL, just like how Christo described it. How cool is that? It's really cool, right? So this basically is the the beginning of being able to kind of work with data. Of course, we're going to show you so many different things like, at the sources level, we're going to be able to go here and say like this sources system, like if I have a void foo in here, you can do things with sources. Like you can go and say sources dot add new source, and you can add a new source in here. You can do all the CRUD operations from there. It's wild. Okay, I'll remove all that stuff that I did, just to not convolute things, and then we'll go look at the pull request. Right, let's take a look at the pull request in here. Get file. I'm gonna go into pull request, standard organization. Here's a pull request. So that closes the sources part. So data, sources, and that closes the sources. Do we have an
No, we'll
actual?
have to create one quickly.
No worries. Here, data, source says data and migration. So that's us. You don't have to do this with every single model you build, but because this is the very first one that we initialize, it required that kind of effort. But moving forward, and these are the tasks we're going to give to the community until tomorrow, is go ahead and create. I think the number of it is 24. Yeah, 24. There you go. So that's a pull request, right? Let's take a look at it real quick. We initialized, we put the copyrights, we did all that fun stuff. Yeah, it looks pretty clean to me, just like that.
Yeah. So I think the migration file is the only file we don't tend to touch for the other people watching because
We
that was
don't.
system generated. So if there's formatting issues, we don't
Just
really
leave it.
worry about it.
Just leave it alone. At some point in advanced scenarios where you have to do specific things to the migration, you will touch this file. But for now, just leave it alone,
Mm.
right? I'm gonna go ahead. We have a build running, but now that we have packages and stuff, look, the restore is the one that holds up all of that because all the security issues and whatnot that happens. Okay, so while this is building, okay, Christo, I'm gonna go ahead and assign. I'm gonna mark contribution type, contribution, contributor, and oh, actually, you did have source in here,
Oh, I see. Yeah.
huh? And then repository. I'm gonna mark all these as for grab. So
Yeah.
if you learn it, up for grabs. There you go. There you go. So I'm gonna remove the reserved for stream from all of these. Of course, people are gonna run into very interesting situations where foreign keys, how to define foreign keys. But that's part of this session, right? To help you kind of go look around and learn. And you shouldn't have all the answers all the time. You should be able to kind of figure out, on your own some of these things. So up for grabs. If you want, and this is just for the community, people that are waiting patiently. I've been asked this question 50 times. When can I contribute? When I can contribute?
Mm.
So if you want the task, you have to type a comment here that says, I'm taking it. I'm grabbing this, right? And if you open a PR, other than the person that said I'm grabbing it, we're just gonna shut your PR. So we have some form of organization. So if you're watching this stream, go ahead and do it. If you don't have the time or you're not able to get to it, we'll just kind of, pick it up in our stream and keep pushing forward. How about that? Does that sound like a good deal?
Yep. That sounds like a plan.
Okay. I'm just waiting. it should be done super quick with the build so we can actually close this session. So .NET Run, this should be quick. No restore. I guess that's why they do the no restore, just to optimize the process, but there's no way around it. It's gonna take forever. There you go. Not a lot of tests either, but when did our tests ever take so long? Even acceptance tests would take a minute max. So
Mm.
there you go. Post checkout. Looks like everything is good. What do you think, Krista? Should we merge our very first PR?
Yeah, we can merge it.
Okay, I'm going ahead and merging this. Confirm merge. And then, like I said, the rest is up for grabs. See, I already see comments. People are already leaving comments as each country. Oh my God, we really just started, man. No, that's 2 weeks ago. So someone that's
Mm.
not today. Okay, so I'll let people kind of discuss this and grab this. By the time you and I sync up tomorrow, we'll see what the community have created. We will take this stream time also to review live pull requests, so all people kind of learn. We can't pair with the world, but we can record streams, and people can watch these streams and learn from them.
Yeah,
Presto. Anything
thank
else?
you.
It's all
No,
good.
I'm all good. I wonder, shall we open up Daytime Broker and Login Broker as well? Because people have seen that in previous streams.
Sure. Please do. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll add that as for
Put the
grabs as
daytime
well.
broker, login broker. We'll talk about them at least once. Like if someone opened up a PR, but you and I are not allowed to pick up these. It's the whole idea of this is for the community to learn, but also build something really interesting. Thank you, my brother. This was fun.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone that was following us, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.
Good night.